The United States government just spent 4 years, 2 administrations, and countless congressional hearings trying to ban a dancing app. And they want you to believe that once TikTok disappears from American phones, the tech industry is saved, the innovation engine is protected, national security is restored. That might be the most dangerous lie in technology today. Here's the question nobody in Washington wants to answer. If American tech is so dominant, so unassailable, so far ahead of the rest of the world, why does a single app built by a company in Beijing have them this terrified? I'll tell you why. Because TikTok isn't the disease, it's the symptom. And banning it is like taking aspirin for a tumor. It makes you feel better for about an hour, and then reality comes back harder than before. I've spent the last 18 months studying what's actually happening beneath the surface of the US-China tech war. I've spoken to engineers in Silicon Valley who are quietly updating their LinkedIn profiles in Mandarin. I've talked to venture capitalists in San Francisco who are privately shifting allocation toward Shenzhen-based startups. And what I found is a story built on 3 structural failures that no TikTok ban can fix. 3 forces are hollowing out American tech dominance from the inside: the talent drain paradox, the innovation theater problem, and the algorithm gap. Each one is more uncomfortable than the last, and together they paint a picture that should genuinely worry anyone who thinks deleting an app equals winning a tech war. Let me start with force number 1, the talent drain paradox. And this one is personal, because I watched it happen in real time. Most people think America wins the global talent war. After all, the best engineers in the world dream of working at Google, Apple, Meta. That was true in 2015. Here's what the numbers say in 2024. According to the National Foundation for American Policy, the denial rate for H-1B visa petitions hit 24% under recent processing cycles, compared to just 6% a decade ago. That's not a rounding error. That's a structural shift. The United States is actively turning away the exact people it needs to maintain its technological edge. And here's what nobody tells you about where those rejected engineers go. They don't go home and retire. They go to Hangzhou. They go to Shenzhen. They go to Singapore, to Dubai's new AI corridors, to Berlin's exploding deep tech scene. A senior recruiter at a major Chinese tech firm told me off the record that 2023 was their best year ever for hiring engineers who had previously been employed in the United States. Not Chinese nationals returning home. Engineers of every nationality who simply got tired of waiting for a visa system that treats them like a threat. Let me show you the numbers that matter. ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, now employs over 150,000 people globally. Their R&D expenditure in 2023 was approximately $14.2 billion. That's more than Intel spent on research and development in the same period. Read that again. The company America wants to ban is outspending one of America's foundational chip makers on pure innovation. And here's the paradox that should keep tech executives up at night. Every policy designed to restrict Chinese tech actually accelerates China's talent acquisition. When you ban TikTok, you don't destroy ByteDance. You push their most ambitious engineers deeper into domestic Chinese projects that you'll never see, never regulate, and never compete against. You lose visibility, you lose leverage, and you definitely lose talent. I talked to a machine learning researcher in Mountain View last fall who put it perfectly. He said, "The ban doesn't scare ByteDance. It scares me, because it tells the world that America's strategy is deletion, not competition." That's force number 1. America isn't losing the talent war because China is stealing engineers. It's losing because it's handing them away through bureaucratic self-sabotage dressed up as national security. And that's just the first layer. The second force is the one that Silicon Valley absolutely does not want you to understand, because it exposes something deeply broken about how American tech actually innovates now. Let me show you. So here's the second force at work, and this one cuts right to the heart of what Silicon Valley has become. I call it the innovation theater problem, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Most people think American tech companies are innovation machines. They picture garages in Palo Alto, brilliant founders sketching ideas on whiteboards, breakthrough products changing the world every 18 months. That narrative was real once. But here's what's really happening behind the curtain right now. American tech has become obsessed with financial engineering instead of actual engineering. Let me show you the numbers that tell the real story. In 2023, the 5 largest U.S. tech companies, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta, spent a combined $279 billion on stock buybacks and dividends. Let that number land for a moment. $279 billion. In the same year, their combined R&D spending was approximately $198 billion. American tech's biggest players are literally spending more money buying back their own stock than they are investing in the future. Here's what that means in practical terms. When Apple buys back $90 billion of its own shares in a single year, that money doesn't create a single new product. It doesn't fund a single researcher. It doesn't train a single engineer. It makes the stock price go up. It makes shareholders happy. And it makes the innovation gap wider. Now compare that to what's happening on the other side of the Pacific. When I was in Beijing last year, I visited Zhongguancun, which is essentially China's answer to Silicon Valley. What struck me wasn't the buildings or the campuses. It was the speed. A startup founder I met there showed me a product that went from concept to functional prototype in 9 weeks. 9 weeks. He laughed when I told him similar projects in San Francisco typically take 6 to 8 months to reach the same stage. He said, "We don't have time for pitch decks. We build." That's not an isolated anecdote. McKinsey published research in late 2023 showing that Chinese tech companies bring products to market 37% faster than their American counterparts on average, not because they cut corners. Because their entire system, from venture capital to regulatory approval to manufacturing, is optimized for velocity. The American system is optimized for valuation. And this is the part that should genuinely surprise you. TikTok itself is the perfect case study of this innovation theater problem in reverse. Think about what TikTok actually accomplished. ByteDance didn't just build a social media app. They built the most sophisticated recommendation algorithm on the planet, one so effective that American companies with 10 times the resources couldn't replicate it. Instagram launched Reels. YouTube launched Shorts. Both are essentially admissions that the most innovative tech companies in America couldn't out-innovate a single Chinese competitor. If you're finding this valuable, hit that like button, because this next part connects to something even bigger. Meta spent over $36 billion on Reality Labs between 2020 and 2023, chasing a metaverse that nobody asked for. $36 billion. You know what ByteDance spent a fraction of that amount building? An algorithm that captured 1.7 billion monthly active users worldwide and fundamentally changed how an entire generation consumes information. That's not just a difference in strategy. That's a difference in institutional DNA. Here's what mainstream tech coverage gets wrong. They frame the TikTok ban as America protecting its tech industry. But protecting from what exactly? From a competitor that was simply better at building what users actually wanted? Since when is the American response to superior competition to ban the competitor rather than build something better? A venture capitalist in San Francisco told me something off the record that stuck with me for weeks. He said, "We don't fund builders anymore. We fund narratives. The founder who can tell the best story at demo day gets the check, not the one with the best code." He paused and then added, "In Shenzhen, nobody cares about your story. They care about your product." That's the innovation theater problem. American tech has become phenomenal at performing innovation, press releases, keynote presentations, billion-dollar announcements, while the actual competitive muscle quietly atrophies underneath. And now we arrive at force number 3. This is the one that makes the TikTok ban not just pointless, but genuinely counterproductive. It's called the algorithm gap. And here's the uncomfortable truth most analysts are afraid to say out loud. The algorithm gap is the force that should terrify every American policymaker, and it's the one almost nobody is talking about honestly. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The United States is no longer the world leader in applied artificial intelligence, not in the way that matters most. Most people hear that and immediately push back. America has OpenAI, America has Google DeepMind, America has Anthropic, and yes, those companies are doing extraordinary work in foundational AI research. But here's what makes people uncomfortable. There is a massive difference between building impressive AI models in a lab and deploying AI systems at civilizational scale across an entire economy, and that is where China is quietly pulling ahead. Let me show you the numbers that matter. According to Stanford's 2024 AI Index report, China produced 61% of the world's most cited AI research papers in 2023. The United States produced 17%. Read those numbers again. 61 versus 17. That is not a gap. That is a chasm, and it didn't appear overnight. It's the result of 15 years of systematic investment, while American institutions were busy debating whether AI was overhyped. Now here's where the TikTok ban becomes not just ineffective, but actively self-defeating. TikTok's recommendation engine isn't just a commercial product, it's a training ground. Every second that 1.7 billion users spend on TikTok generates behavioral data that feeds back into one of the most advanced machine learning systems ever built. That data teaches the algorithm about human attention, human preference, human decision-making at a scale no American company has ever achieved with a single platform. When you ban TikTok in the United States, you don't destroy that system. You just remove American users from the dataset. ByteDance still has 1.5 billion users across Asia, Europe, Latin America, and Africa, generating data every single day. The algorithm keeps learning. It keeps improving. The only difference is that it's now learning without American behavioral patterns included, which means American researchers lose the ability to study it, reverse engineer it, or compete with it on equal terms. A senior AI researcher at a major American university put it to me this way. She said, banning TikTok is like closing your eyes during an exam and calling it a strategy. The test doesn't stop just because you stopped looking. Stay with me, because what comes next changes everything about how you should think about this. The algorithm gap extends far beyond social media. This is the part most Western analysts completely miss. China's AI advantage isn't just about apps, it's about infrastructure. China has deployed AI systems across 647 smart city projects as of early 2024. Their AI-driven logistics networks process 108 million packages per day through systems like Cainiao, Alibaba's delivery platform. Their autonomous vehicle testing has accumulated over 120 million kilometers of real-world driving data across 14 cities. These are not pilot programs. These are fully operational systems running at a scale America hasn't even attempted. And here's what this actually means for the tech competition. Every one of those deployments generates proprietary training data. Every smart city sensor, every automated delivery route, every autonomous vehicle decision creates feedback loops that make Chinese AI systems smarter, faster, and more robust. The United States doesn't have an equivalent data ecosystem, not even close. Here's what mainstream analysis gets wrong about the TikTok ban. They treat it as an isolated national security decision. Remove the app, remove the threat. But the real threat was never a single application. The real threat is that America is falling behind in the infrastructure layer of AI. The deployment, the data generation, the real-world feedback systems, while obsessing over a consumer app that is ultimately just one node in a much larger network. I talked to factory workers in Shenzhen last year who showed me AI quality control systems on their production lines that could identify manufacturing defects at 99.7% accuracy. These systems were built by companies most Americans have never heard of. Not ByteDance, not Alibaba. Small, hyper-specialized firms operating completely outside Western radar. That's the algorithm gap. And it connects directly to why banning TikTok isn't just insufficient, it's a distraction from the structural transformation that's already underway. Now let me pull all three forces together, because when you see them as a single system, something much bigger becomes visible. And it points to three possible futures that nobody in Washington is preparing for. Let me pull this together, because when you stack all three forces on top of each other, something profound emerges. Something that reframes the entire TikTok debate and exposes what's really at stake for American technological power. The talent drain paradox means America is bleeding its most valuable resource, human capital, through a visa system designed for the 20th century. The innovation theater problem means the companies that should be fighting for dominance are instead optimizing for shareholder returns at the expense of genuine breakthroughs. And the algorithm gap means the underlying infrastructure of the next technological era is being built faster and deployed more aggressively on the other side of the Pacific. These aren't three separate problems. They're one system. I call it the competitiveness inversion. The tools and policies America designed to protect its tech dominance are systematically accelerating its decline. And the TikTok ban sits right at the center of this inversion. Every piece of restrictive tech policy, the bans, the tariffs on semiconductors, the entity lists, the export controls, follows the same logic. Restrict the competitor and the problem goes away. But here's what that logic misses entirely. You cannot sanction your way to innovation. You cannot ban your way to technological leadership. You cannot legislate an algorithm into existence. At some point, you actually have to build something better. And right now, the evidence suggests America has forgotten how to prioritize building over blocking. A senior economist told me off the record at a conference in Singapore last March something that has stayed with me every day since. He said, empires don't fall because their enemies get stronger. They fall because they start managing decline instead of generating growth. The TikTok ban is decline management dressed in a national security costume. That's the most precise summary of this entire situation I've ever heard. So, where does this go from here? Let me lay out 3 scenarios, because the future of American tech hinges on which path gets chosen in the next 36 months. Scenario 1, the fortress approach. America doubles down on bans and restrictions. TikTok is removed. More Chinese apps follow. Export controls tighten further. The tech ecosystem becomes increasingly closed. In this scenario, American companies feel temporarily safe but lose access to global competition that drives innovation. Within 5 years, a parallel tech ecosystem emerges across Asia, the Middle East, and Africa built entirely on Chinese infrastructure. America wins the domestic battle and loses the global war. Probability based on current trajectory, roughly 45%. Scenario 2. The wake-up call. The TikTok ban triggers genuine introspection. Congress reforms the H-1B system, doubling annual allocations. Tax incentives shift from rewarding buybacks to rewarding R&D investment. A federal AI deployment initiative launches, modeled on China's smart city infrastructure but adapted for democratic governance. American tech rediscovers its competitive instinct. This is the optimistic path, probability. Maybe 20%, because it requires political courage that Washington has shown zero evidence of possessing. Scenario 3, the slow fracture. This is the one nobody wants to talk about. America bans TikTok, declares victory, and does nothing else. The talent drain continues. Innovation theater continues. The algorithm gap widens. By 2030, the global technology landscape splits into 2 spheres, and America leads the smaller one. Not because China did anything extraordinary, but because America chose comfort over competition. Probability, roughly 35%, and rising every quarter. Here's what I want to leave you with. The TikTok ban isn't about TikTok. It never was. It's about whether America still has the institutional capacity to compete rather than just restrict. It's about whether a country built on innovation can rediscover that identity before the window closes. The competitiveness inversion is real. The numbers prove it. The trends confirm it. And no amount of app deletions will reverse it. The question isn't whether TikTok survives. The question is whether American tech leadership survives. And right now, based on everything I've shown you, that answer is genuinely uncertain. I want to hear from you. Do you think the TikTok ban is genuine national security policy or a distraction from deeper structural failure? Drop your answer in the comments. If this video made you think differently, subscribe and share it with someone who still believes banning an app wins a tech war. Because the real war isn't on your phone, it's in the systems you'll never see.